I want to welcome you to our YouTube channel, Escaping the Revolving Door. I'm John LeMaster. You're viewing the 6th video session now of a 12-session video course entitled Escaping the Revolving Door of Prison. When you finish this video, you'll be halfway to completing the entire 12-session study. But we have a lot of territory to cover in the remaining 6 sections. So please stay with us to complete the study, because I guarantee you it'll be well worth your time and effort. Be sure to view the video sessions 1 through 5 so that you can get a better understanding of the full course content and why this course of study is so different from other courses you may have taken to help you with your rehabilitation. And make sure you hit the subscribe button below and then give us a thumbs up if you find this video helpful. In our last session, session number 5, we covered the third of the 7 major contributors to reoffending inmates gave us as to why men and women reoffend after being released from prison. They told us that after release, they had either started to engage in substance abuse, or they reestablished their old habit that led them down the wrong road by causing them to waste their resources and ended up causing a lot of pain and suffering in their families. In this video session, we gained an understanding of just some of the giants people have to face in their lives that just must be defeated for their well-being, and how we can face and defeat the giant of addiction in our lives by investigating and learning to use the 5 truths that empowered David to approach the giant Goliath and defeat him on the battlefield. After that, we covered why taking drugs gives the pleasurable feelings referred to as a high, by discussing a little bit about brain chemistry and the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine. Then we discussed 10 ways that we can increase the dopamine levels in our brains naturally without taking drugs. And finally, we went into a lot of detail on overcoming drug abuse and addiction with a 7-step practical guide to overcoming drug addiction. In this session, number 6, we want to cover the 4th of the 7 major contributors to reoffending. The inmates told us that they found when they were released and looking for a job that they just could not find a position that paid an adequate salary for them to pay their obligations, all their bills, because they either lacked the suitable skills required or they didn't know how to secure suitable employment with the skills they even had right then. In this session, we want to learn how to go about preparing ourselves to gain suitable employment by first looking at what's called the law of reaping and sowing. The outcome of that sowing depends on the kind of seed we're sowing and whether it's good or bad seed, and then how much time and effort we're spending in that sowing process. Then we'll be covering how to go about classifying your current skills and strengths by utilizing the 3 P's of marketing yourself. That's called previous experience, portable skills, and personality factors. And give you examples of what those are so that you can develop a listing of your own skills and strengths so that you can use them on resumes and job applications to enhance your job search and help you succeed in finding that good-paying job you need. And next, we'll be discussing what you can begin to do right now, even if you're currently in prison, to prepare for that dreaded job interview that'll be necessary for you to go through to convince the interviewer you're the right person for their open position. Then we'll be covering 25 of the most common interview questions asked by interviewers, and then going through exactly how you can answer 10 of those more challenging questions so that you'll stand out from other applicants and impress the interviewer so that you'll get a good job offer. Following that, we're going to cover how to address and answer the felony question very carefully and positively. Even though the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony, is being removed from applications and interviews, the person reviewing the application or the interviewer will notice that you have very large gaps in your employment history. So the question will come up as to why there are large gaps there. And finally, we will cover interviewing tips that will give you confidence prior to and during the interview. I want to begin this session by reminding you of that spiritual law mentioned. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. Sowing and reaping is one of the simplest but yet most ignored concepts, I think, in life. The outcome of our harvest depends on whether we have sown good seed or bad seed, as I mentioned, and the amount of time and effort we've put into that sowing process. The Bible gives us some very clear teaching on this reality. Don't be misled or deceived. You cannot mock the justice of God. Whatever a man sows is what he's going to reap or harvest. That's taken out of the New Testament book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 7 and 8. You know, we try to deceive ourselves into believing that we won't pay the price for sowing bad seed, but you and I know that doesn't work. Someone has said that we often sow the wrong kind of seed early in our lives and then pray for a crop failure. If we want the right kind of harvest, we're going to have to make the right kind of choices. Correct our actions and invest in positive things that will bring a harvest of reward. Here's another scripture to consider. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And that's taken out of the New Testament book of 2 Corinthians 9:6. It's sometimes a pretty hard lesson to learn that if you sow little or nothing, you'll reap, never acquiring the better things in life you desire, because you didn't apply yourself to either learn a trade or make the effort to attend college. And that lack of ambition will result in you depending on others for your support. And that dependency will ensure that you'll never have enough to quite meet your needs. What are you sowing today? You know, it doesn't really matter if you think you are sowing or not, because anything that you're putting your time, energy, money, or focus on is actually an act of sowing. Step out and recognize that your life is like one big field waiting for the right seeds to be planted. The best thing you can do right now to find out if you are sowing the right kinds of seeds is to take an inventory of your life. You can start with the good seed of determination to make the necessary changes you need to make so that one day you'll reap a huge harvest of reward. Personally, I think that you've made a great start by committing to viewing this 12-session course on YouTube, because you're showing not only yourself, but you're showing other people that you've decided to utilize all resources available to you to make the positive changes in your life. By making this kind of choice, you can choose to be the victor of your circumstances and not the victim of them. You know, other than becoming a Christian, the single most important factor in successful reentry into society after being released from prison is securing a fulfilling job that pays an adequate salary to provide the needs you have, the needs for food and housing and transportation, a phone, and even secondary needs that make your life so enjoyable. Now let's look at some interesting statistics that'll give you some valuable information on the employment situation in this country. I read recently that right now in the USA there are 5.8 million jobs available that cannot be filled because employers can't find qualified applicants. They simply say there's a skills gap in the workforce now. And speaking of a skills gap in the workforce, it's almost a necessity these days to have a high school diploma or a GED to meet the minimum requirements for most jobs and to apply for being accepted at even community colleges, universities, or even private schools. Now, without a high school diploma or a GED, your earnings potential is also very limited. Many correctional institutions have programs that you can take the required course to obtain that GED. So if you don't have one right now, this is the time to do it. To be able to qualify for higher paying jobs, you have to be willing to apply yourselves to learn the skills that employers are looking for, or be willing to be hired as an apprentice, or attend a trade school or attend college to acquire those skills. There seems to be an overabundance of college grads, but few people who are trained in trades like nursing profession, a machinist, auto mechanics, electricians, plumbers, and even truck drivers. Now, these kinds of careers not only provide much needed services to society, but they also provide an excellent earning potential for those trained in these trades. Trucking companies say they would even hire 50,000 truck drivers right now if they could find qualified drivers. By the way, the average salary of an 18-wheeler truck driver is big-time bucks. It's $65,000 per year, and some make as much as $100,000 or more. Can you drive an 18-wheeler truck? I can say absolutely, if you have a commercial driver's license. A trucking group recently said that they were so desperate for drivers, they'd be willing to pay the training fees for their employees to receive that CDL license and then pay them a salary while they're being trained. Can you do the jobs I've mentioned? Certainly. There are trade schools available to train you, and by the way, the cost of these trade schools are very much less than a 4-year college degree. Some companies will even train you for a trade at no cost to you while paying a salary. I know this is true because I started my career as an on-the-job apprentice with a major appliance company, so I know that's a great way to start. A 4-year degree at many universities costs well over $100,000 these days, and often takes more than 4 years to complete. Many people have to borrow the money to cover college expenses, but then are burdened with paying back that loan over many years after they graduate. What are you saying, John? Are you saying for me not to attend college? Not at all. All I'm saying is that there are many ways to begin a career or find an occupation that's suitable for you, that'll pay an adequate salary to support you and your family. Trade schools have a more hands-on approach to training, as you probably know. You learn by working with a trainer. Some prisons have trade school or vocational training. I'm not sure what's available at the prison you're in now, but begin developing job skills at your prison if offered. Courses taught in prison or correspondence courses that you're allowed to take through the mail will go a long way in helping you. Don't just serve your time in prison without a purpose, but serve your time productively. Serve your time constructively so that when you're released, you'll be well on your way to successful reentry because you will have developed the skills to acquire that good-paying job when released that you need. Learning computer skills is another excellent way to enhance your abilities that are needed in almost every industry these days. Take advantage of learning computer skills in prison if offered, or get that kind of training after you're released. The next step is to visualize yourself in a good-paying job that allows you to use your talents and abilities. Change requires us to focus on what we want to become. Stephen Covey wrote a book entitled 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If that course is ever taught in prison there where you are now, make sure you sign up for it. Or if you're in a halfway transitional facility, either buy a copy of the book or check one out at your local library and study it. And Covey's book, he says it this way: begin with the end in mind. Where do you want to end up? Hold that picture in your mind. Remind yourself of it frequently. Beginning with the end in mind means you begin each day, each task, or each project with a clear vision of your desired direction and destination. Beginning with the end in mind can keep us from getting discouraged along the way and lose our focus. And God will even help you get there if you'll ask Him for help and trust Him. I've said it before, and it's worth repeating. God wants you to be a success. He has a plan for your life, according to Jeremiah 29:11. But it takes your cooperation in reaching that goal. You know, this class is not just about giving you some tools to get any kind of job. God wants you to be the leader, not a follower. He wants you to become the manager, not just a worker bee. You know, I tell inmates everywhere we minister that God doesn't want you to be just a hamburger flipper. He wants you to become the manager of the business and perhaps even one day the owner of that. I know people that have now owned McDonald's that started as hamburger flippers. There's nothing wrong with being a cook at a fast-serve restaurant or any other lower-level job. But that should only be your starting position, because you have a lot more to offer that company if you take on responsibility that's needed to advance. Deuteronomy 28:13, a great scripture to know, says that God will make you the head and not the tail. If you follow God and make Him Lord of your life, you'll always be at the top and never at the bottom. But in order to be the head and not the tail, you're going to have to apply yourself. No one's going to hand it to you on a silver platter. You have to take on responsibility. You have to be a worker with a can-do attitude. This class will help you see how you can get prepared now to secure that good job God wants you to have. A fulfilling job yields a sense of significance to men, but it also does for women as well. A feeling of being unique and important and special, and of course needed. Before looking for a job, a resume needs to be assembled and written that lists your work's experience and achievements and contributions you've made for the company you've worked for. Many prisons require an inmate to write a resume before they're released. I don't know how your prison does. Many prisons don't give a whole lot of guidance on how to do that. We're going to help you do that. We will cover how to write an effective resume in the second part of this class, class number 7. And also cover the 10-step interview preparation plan that will cover everything from how you ought to dress for success and what you need to do when you're going to an interview to appear professional and most of all, confident. The job search process begins after the resume is written and then sent out either electronically or hard copies sent to prospective employers. After reviewing your resume, a prospective employer will, in most cases, want you to participate in that dreaded job interview process. Most applicants for jobs do little or no advanced preparation for the interview, and so are at a disadvantage to those who have done at least some kind of advanced preparation. Preparing for job interview is something that you just cannot leave until the last minute. You need to be preparing right now. You may say, John, I don't need to start now. I won't be released for another year or two. But trying to wait and prepare just before an interview is a big mistake. Start with prayer. Ask God to help you with preparation, to remember the things that we brought up in the class and lead you to the right kind of job after your release, where you can contribute your talents and your abilities. Later in this video, we will cover how to go about classifying your skills and strengths. Then we'll cover what you can do right now to prepare for that dreaded job interview in such a way to give you an advantage over those who have not done adequate preparation. What can you do right now? What kind of advanced preparation can you begin to do? Well, first of all, begin by developing a list of skills and strengths. What makes you different from other applicants? Many people underestimate their abilities and strengths, and so often don't include some critical strengths they possess on applications and resumes. For instance, one guy, a previous attendee of this class at Branchville Corrections in Branchville, Indiana, said, John, listing my skills is going to take part of a page. I doubt if I could get more than a fourth of a page. And so I began asking him questions, and within just a few minutes, he had a complete page full of skills and abilities. I just asked him some simple questions. Are you a fast learner? Do you have a customer focus? Are you friendly or flexible and creative? Do you have a can-do attitude? Are you able to meet new challenges? Do you have excellent follow-through to get a job done? And are you detail-oriented? Do you work well with other people, like on teams? And are you conscientious? He found out he had a lot of important qualities he never thought were important. You will use this list later to compare it to the skills, the knowledge, and the professional and personal qualities that are required by the employer and are critical for success in the job you're applying for. To help with this process, I recommend that you put together a worksheet with 3 sections, fairly large: previous experience, portable skills, and then personality factors. These are referred to as the 3 Ps of marketing yourself. Remember that finding the right job requires you to market your abilities to a prospective employer. Think of yourself as a marketing manager. Let's define and get an understanding of what these 3 Ps contain. What's previous experience? Well, that's what most people put on resumes. That's what they think it includes. It's job-specific work experience or whatever knowledge and skills you've developed from previous jobs. It can include full-time work, part-time work, self-employment. Then the names of the organizations where you were employed, the position or title that you held, the employment period for each job, month and year, and then make a bulleted list of responsibilities and duties, but also achievements or accomplishments you made. A lot of applicants want to make just a list of their responsibilities. Well, you know, I was responsible for this and that. But that says nothing about the contributions you made, which is the critical part. What's portable skills? Well, those are transferable skills you've developed you can take to any job. Examples are, I'm a detail-oriented kind of a person. I have a keen eye for details. I'm dedicated to improving my skills. I'm able to follow directions and meet new challenges. I have excellent follow-through on a job given to me. I've got good communication skills. I'm a fast learner. I have good problem-solving skills. I'm eager to learn and develop. And I have a customer focus. Here's an example. I learned quickly in my last job what my responsibilities were and how to contribute. Then give examples. What are personality factors? These are the factors are the skills that are a part of who you are as a person. Example, I'm self-motivated, well-organized, friendly, goal-directed, flexible, creative. I've got a good attitude, a good interpersonal skills. I work very well with other people. I complete the task assigned to me. I'm able to follow directions, but, I'm also able to think for myself to contribute to the success of the organization. I have an excellent attendance record. And, I show up on time at my place of employment ready to work. These are things that employers are looking for and often have difficulty finding. Here's an example of the 3 Ps developed by a lady named Gina who'd been working as a marketing manager but was laid off. Previous experience, marketing knowledge, well developed. I used my communication skills in dealing with customers. Press and industry relations experience. I've done product development and my computer skills are well developed. Now here's her list of portable skills. I've got good customer focus. I've good oral and written communication skills. I'm organized. I'm good at coordinating. I'm a team leader kind of a person. Problem-solving skills are excellent. I utilize project management skills. I have excellent follow-through. I'm good with budgets and numbers. I can do time management. I utilize all resources available to me to bring projects to completion on time, and most importantly, within budget. And then her personality characteristics. Self-motivated to get the job completed. I'm independent, friendly, well-organized. I'm a quick learner. Have good attitude. I'm creative. I'm methodical. I'm flexible. I have a good sense of humor. I'm goal-directed. I work well with other people. I got good problem-solving skills. I got that positive, can-do attitude. I'm punctual, and I'm adaptable. Once you put this list of 3 Ps together, you can use it to develop your resume and fill out job applications effectively. If you like a strong experience section, what do? You emphasize the portable or the personality strengths. Remember, you're trying to sell yourself. Think creatively. Many of Gina's personal characteristics, I believe you can probably claim as your own. Prepare for the common questions that an interviewer might ask you. Write down the answers to give you a script to follow, and then practice answering the questions out loud. You know, I've found there's common questions that interviewers ask job seekers. Later in this video, I'm going to give you a list of 25 of the most commonly asked questions. I culled from about 250 that I found. But then after you get that list and write that script out, practice and plan. Pair up with a friend at prison and role play the job interview process, or do it with a friend. Let your friend play the part of the hiring manager and you play the part of the one interviewing for a position, and then what? You switch roles. Not only will this give you a way to structure your preparation, but it will also help you get comfortable with giving answers. Telling short stories about how you excelled in a job and using appropriate terminology. Practice giving concise, complete answers and maintaining eye contact while you give those answers. Make sure you're not speaking too slowly or too fast, and that your answers are stated with confidence. Get feedback from that friend you're role-playing with. Even if you think their feedback is way off the mark, John, it's something to consider. We don't always know how we come across to other people. And the actual interviewer could share some of their same concerns. Know basically what you want to talk about before you go into that interview. If you're stumbling and fumbling for an answer on a very basic question, you're not going to look good. You're not putting your best foot forward. Have your very basic answers down pat, as they say. Anticipate some of the tougher questions before you step into the interview room. And get so familiar with answering these common questions that your answers will roll off your tongue smoothly and well stated. Start to prepare now. Don't wait till you're released. You don't necessarily want to memorize responses so that when you answer the interviewer, you don't come across like they're all canned or they're memorized. But have a good general strategy for answering common interview questions and be comfortable with answering them. Don't be surprised or thrown off guard by being asked about your felony conviction. Plan on how you're going to answer that interviewer in a positive way about your felony conviction. I'm going to cover that subject in a lot more detail later on in this session, so make sure you listen and take notes. For those with an addiction problem that led to being in prison, mention you've taken courses to help with overcoming addictions, like you've started to attend AA or the Christian 12-step program. It'll not only help you, but it'll show that you've done due diligence in turning from your past, and it definitely looks good on your resume. Tell them that you'll be to work on time, you'll be a hard worker, and you'll be a positive influence at your job. And this, you will never, ever offend again. You have to convince that hiring manager that you're not going to be a risk, but you're going to be an asset. So here's a list of the 25 most common interview questions. Will you face them all? No, I don't think so. I hope no interviewer would be that cruel. Will you face a few? I can guarantee you will. Will you be well served by being ready, even if you're not asked these exact questions? I can assure you that's true. Let's look at the list. Tell me about yourself. We're going to go into that. What are your strengths? And then, this is a difficult one. What are your weaknesses? Why do you want this job other than just making money? Why should I hire you? What can you offer us that I can't find somewhere else? And why are you the best person for this position? Tell me about an accomplishment you're most proud of. What has been one of your biggest achievements? And tell me how you handled a difficult situation. Give a time when you went above and beyond the requirements for a project. How do you handle pressure? What are your career goals? What do you know about this company? Are you a team player? Why do you think you would do well at this job? And what interests you about this job? What are your salary requirements? I want to know why you left your last job. And why did you choose this company and not another one? Give me an example of a time when you had a problem with a coworker and how you went about and approached that problem to solve it. And have you ever had conflict with a boss? How was that resolved? If you had to live your life over again, what one thing would you change? That's a good question. And what questions do you have for me? You better have a list. We'll talk about that later. And what did you do to prepare for this interview? Now we want to show you how to answer the most common interview questions. Obviously, for the sake of time on this video, we can't give you a suggested answer for all 25 of the questions, but we'll show you how to answer 10 of the most difficult questions. This will help give you a strategy for answering questions. One of the most difficult questions to answer correctly is that very first one. Tell me about yourself. While this isn't exactly a question, answering this the wrong way could really hurt your chances of getting a job. HR executives, human resource executives can actually use this as a trick question. Hiring managers can't ask you certain questions legally, but if you go off on a tangent, when answering, you may tell them some things about yourself that you really don't want to have said, and probably better left unsaid. The worst way to approach this request is to tell them your life story, which is something they're really not interested in. I was born on a dark and stormy night. No, they don't want to hear about the drama in your life. What the hiring manager really wants is a quick 2 to 3 minute snapshot of who you are and why you are the best candidate for the position. So as you answer this question, talk about what you've done to prepare yourself to be the very best candidate for the position. Use an example or two to back it up, and then ask them if they'd like to have more details. If they do, give some more examples. Now, always point to an example when you have an opportunity. Tell me yourself does not mean tell me everything. Just tell me what makes you the best candidate. Remember, people remember stories. Preachers often use this knowledge in sermons to help their church people remember points of their sermon. Here's a little story that I found very interesting. One person talked about how their boss was out ill, and while he was out, a group came through that wanted to hear about the company and get a tour of the facilities. I did the best I could to fill in for the boss who was out. Later, the visiting group leader called back and asked me for more details. He totally forgot I was just filling in for the boss. This story sticks in the mind of an interviewer. When they're culling out resumes, if you presented yourself well, they're going to hang on to yours and keep yours in the potential hire list. Number 2 and 3 questions: what are your strengths, and then what are your weaknesses? It's easy to talk about your strengths. You're detail-oriented, hardworking, a team player. But it's easy to get tripped up when discussing your weaknesses. Professionals in interviewing say this: never talk about a real weakness unless it's something you've defeated. The best answer is to discuss a weakness that you've turned around. Such, I used to come in and work a lot, late a lot, but after my supervisor explained how important it was for me to come in on time, I was never late again. Talk about a true weakness, and then show what you did or are doing now to overcome it. Question number 4, why should I hire you? A hiring manager may not ask you this question directly, but every question you answer in the interview should contribute to helping them understand why you are the best person for the job. Stay focused on why your background makes you an ideal candidate, and tells them how you're going to contribute to that department and that company. Let the interviewer know that one of the goals is to make their job easier by taking on as much responsibility as possible. And yet you will be excited about this job starting on day 1. Mary M. Saltpeter's founder of Kepi Careers, who's a professional in hiring people prepare for job interviews, suggests you print out and highlight the job description, looking for the top 3 or 4 duties and responsibilities. Well, do they include terms such as cross-functional team, or a teamwork, or a team player? If so, your answers to why we should hire you should mention and focus on your abilities as they relate to teams. Number 5, it's been one of your biggest achievements? Savvy interviewers ask this question because they want to hear what you can achieve when you're at the top of your game, whether you've had many achievements at all. Being able to talk fluently about your achievements is a key way to show that you're someone who produces outstanding results, rather than someone who just simply does the bare minimum to get by. And then number 6, are you a team player? Well, every job these days requires a certain level of teamwork, and hiring managers want to know if you work well with other people or not. Almost everyone says, yeah, oh yes, but it's not just a yes or no question. You need to provide examples to back up your answer. A sample answer might be, yes, I'm very much a team player. In fact, I learned in my work, my school, and my athletics how to develop my skills as a team player. And talk about the strength of the team above the individual. I understand the fact that a team is both productive and efficient, and I have the ability to compromise and show respect to other people and listen to their comments and to their needs. Number 7, why did you leave your last job? This is a real tough one. If you got fired, don't trash your last boss or company. Tell them that you're unfortunately let go, that you understand their reasoning, but you recognize that there's areas that you needed to improve in, and then tell them how you'll be a better employee because of being fired. And then if you got laid off, again, don't trash the last boss or company. Poor judgment. Tell them that you were let go and that you understand the circumstances behind their decision, that you're committed to your future, not dwelling on the past, and you're ready to apply everything that you learned in your last role to a new company. And then what happens if you quit? Well, don't go into the details about your unhappiness or dissatisfaction. And instead, tell them why you valued the experience and the education that you received at that job. You felt the time had come to seek out a new opportunity, to expand your skills and knowledge, and to find a company with which to grow. Wow, I like that answer. And then number 8, have you ever had conflict with a boss? And how was it resolved? Note that if you say no, most interviewers are just going to keep drilling deeper until they find conflict. The key is how you reacted to conflict and what you did to resolve it. For example, yes, I've had conflicts in the past, never major ones, but there have been disagreements that need to be resolved. I've found that when conflict occurs, it helps to fully understand the other person's perspective. So I take the time to listen to their point of view, and then I seek to work out a cooperative solution. See how nice that comes across? And then number 9, if you had to live your life over again, what one thing would you change? Focus on a key turning point in your life, or maybe a missed opportunity, and link that to what you're still doing now to seek to make that change. I simply wish I had focused earlier on the positive direction my life could have taken if I'd made the right kind of choices and stayed away from those negative antisocial friends. And then number 10. What did you do to prepare for this interview? I recently read that question is the favorite of interviewers. Mentioned that you looked up the interview online so that you'd know what they look like, and that you studied the most commonly asked questions and did a study online of information about the company so you'd be prepared to answer questions regarding what the company does. Now let's get into how to respond to that felony question issue that I talked about earlier. When applying for a job, you may be asked about your felony convictions. Many people are even unaware that they were convicted felons. Remember, a felony is any crime that carries a sentence of more than 1 year. One of the best things to do is tell the truth. Most employers will run a background check and learn about your criminal record, whether you tell them or not. And then some convictions are better than others. Many employers will forgive a drug possession, a conviction, or DUI, but not a string of theft convictions or assaults. Also, the farther back in time the conviction occurred, the better it is. If you're filling out an application, read the felony question carefully. And not all felony questions are the same. For example, some applications simply ask if the felony conviction was in the last 5 years. If your conviction was 7 years ago, what do you say? Hey, no, and just move on. Explain your conviction. If the application gives you space to explain your conviction, and if the conviction, especially far in the past, state what the conviction was and how long ago it happened. Explain that you've turned your life around, and you just welcome the opportunity to discuss it in person. At the interview, you got the interview? Congratulations! This is your chance to show the employer who you are and why you would be a good fit for the position. It's also a time when you'll have time to explain your felony conviction. Give a very brief explanation of your crime, and including only the necessary information. Leave out all the personal details and the drama, who was involved. Again, the older the crime, the better, so mention if it was a long time ago. Take responsibilities for your actions. Admit that you made some poor choices. Give the interviewer a brief explanation of the crime. Do not make excuses or try to justify it. And then put a positive spin on your experience. No one wants to get enmeshed in the criminal justice system, but everyone learns something from the experience. Tell the employer what your experience taught you. For example, you quickly gain social skills. You got a new respect for authority that you didn't have. You're able to take direction now, and you know how to set goals for yourself. The next thing, stress that you've turned your life around. This is really critically important. Since your conviction, you've probably made changes in your life to make sure you never go back to prison again. That's the goal of every inmate that comes out of prison. Talk about these changes. You joined AA. You're in some kind of a support group. You're seeking counseling. You're leaving an abusive relationship. You're finding new friends, new law-abiding friends, and you're reconnecting with a very supportive family. Let me give you an example here. 7 years ago, I was convicted of possessing a controlled substance. I served my time, and I'm now on parole. I took part in an addiction program, and I'm now drug-free. Since my conviction, I've earned my GED, taken courses taught by Christians that have given me the tools to make better choices in my life. This course right here. I've reconnected with my family, and I'm living with my parents. They are incredibly loving and supporting. My conviction was a mistake I made. But I want you to know I've turned my life around, and it will never happen again. The next thing you need to bring up is employer benefits of hiring an ex-offender. As you know, the federal government has several programs to encourage employers to hire ex-offenders. The employers themselves may not even be aware of these incentives, so you might have to explain to them as an additional benefit of hiring you. And then focus on those skills and your abilities. Don't get sidetracked by this felony question. Address it and then move on to talking about why you are the right person for the job. Employers can be very understanding of a past criminal record as long as it's not violent. A felony conviction in your past doesn't prevent you from getting a job. It actually requires you to convince that prospective employer that you're not going to be a risk, you're an asset. So let's look at the 6 steps of how to address the felony conviction issue. Some of these will be repeating some of the things I've already said, but step number 1, offer employers an honest explanation about your past. Addressing the conviction during the interview shows employers you're honest and gives you a chance to explain it in a way that emphasizes what you learned from the experience and how you've gone about changing. Step number 2, help employers to understand the conviction by being specific about the charges and explaining what they mean. Be honest about how much time you've spent in jail and if you're on parole now or not. Some employers aren't concerned with a single conviction, but they're hesitant to hire anyone who's had multiple arrests. If your conviction has been a one-time thing, absolutely mention that right up front. And then step number 3, don't apologize or try to downplay the conviction as a minor mistake. Own up to your conviction and explain it in a matter-of-fact way so employers can see that you've dealt with it in your past and it doesn't affect your present. Step number 4, instead of dwelling on your conviction, shift your conversation toward what you learned from your experience. Tell the employers that going to jail taught you to take responsibility for your life, that you have a greater understanding of how your actions affect other people, and also describe anything you learned in prison and how it's relevant maybe to the job you're applying for now. Make sure you mention if you got a GED or took college classes or learned some vocational skills after you got out of prison. And then step number 5, focus on the changes you made to stay out of prison, such as joining the 12-step program or getting your GED or going to college that I've mentioned. Stress that you've been sober for some time or that you earned early release from prison because of your good behavior. By focusing on how you've improved your life, you'll portray yourself as someone dedicated to becoming a better person and making the world a better place. rather than someone with just a criminal history. And then step number 6, explaining your conviction. Tell the interviewer how long ago it was, and so he'll know that you've stayed out of trouble since. Offer a brief explanation by saying something along the lines, I went through a rough period in my late teens. I was confused, I acted inappropriately. And after getting arrested, I realized how destructive my behavior was. And I've done everything I can to put that time in my life behind me. So now let's go into job interviewing tips and general information on vocal preparation. Like many career advice experts, Steve Fogarty, staffing partner at Wagner Edstrom, says candidates should research a company thoroughly before an interview. I guarantee you something about the company will come up. Next step, be concise. Interviewees rambling on are one of the most common interview blunders Fogarty says he sees. You really have to listen to the question and answer it concisely. So many people can't get this basic thing down. Ask them a question and they go off on a rabbit track. The next thing, provide examples. It's one thing to say, I can do this or that. It's another to give examples of things you've done. Come with a toolbox of examples of the work you've done, advisors Fogarty. You should come and anticipate the questions a recruiter is going to ask based on the requirements of the job. And then think of some stories, as we told earlier. To prepare, write down, and memorize 3 achievement stories. Tell about times you really felt proud of an achievement at work or school. These stories will demonstrate all those hard-to-measure qualities like judgment and initiative and teamwork and leadership. And then be honest. If you don't have a skill, just state it. Don't try to cover it up by talking and giving examples that aren't relevant. Don't be a politician here. You're much better off saying you don't have that skill, but perhaps you do have some related skills that you're happy to tell and talk about if they'd like to do that. And then earlier we talked about asking questions. Another of Fogarty's interview tips is to come ready with good questions. He says nothing impresses him more than a really good question that not only shows that you've researched the company in general, but also the specific job you're hoping to land in particular. And he says that makes me go, wow, this person has really done their homework. Bring the list. It's okay to bring it out. You can say, in preparing for today's meeting, I took some time to jot down a few questions. Would you allow me to review my notes? And they won't have any problem with that. What do you consider the most important criteria for success in this job? What are the opportunities for advancement? That's another good question. How does my background compare to other candidates you're interviewing? If you don't ask this question, two things could happen. You could move forward in the interview process but emphasize all the wrong points, or you don't move forward and you don't have any idea why. What are the biggest challenges I'll face in the first 90 days? And how will success be measured? That is a great question. Is there anything about my background that makes you hesitant to move me forward in the interview process? Participating actively during the interview gives a good impression of your level of interest in the job. And then interview yourself for the position. Before every interview, ask yourself, why am I a good fit for this job? I tell my clients, Miriam Saltpeter says, to post the question, why should we hire you, on their bathroom mirror or refrigerator or any place they'll see during the day. I instruct them to answer out loud, keeping different companies in mind each time they answer. Rehearsing this way will help you hone in on what you have to offer. And my last point in this section, make sure you structure your answers, that you're talking in 30 to 90-second chunks. Any less, and you're likely to seem unqualified. Now I'd like to cover just a short segment on the latest craze in interviewing using the modern technology called Zoom and artificial intelligence. You may not be familiar with these, so let me give you a little short lesson on them. What's Zoom anyway? Well, Zoom is a cloud-based video conferencing service you can use to virtually meet with other people, either by video or audio only, or both, all while conducting live chats, and it lets you record those sessions to view later. When people are talking about Zoom, you usually hear the phrase Zoom meeting. A Zoom meeting refers to a video conference using Zoom. A Zoom app can be downloaded onto any smartphone you use for these meetings. I'm sure you've heard of the term artificial intelligence. That's a computer-based tool able to perform tasks that are normally requiring human intelligence. The use of AI in the job interviews is on the rise, and many feel will become the new standard in interviewing techniques. Many firms now conduct initial interviews using Zoom that I just discussed, but others are using AI tools, offering to make a process a little bit more efficient. So if a robot recruiter faces you in the next interview, experts recommend keeping these tips in mind. Make sure you use simple things like smiling, leaning forward, and lots of eye contact to make a good impression. Remember, your language is also being analyzed by the computer. If you use the words "I think" before answering, AI will interpret that use of that phrase as being more tentative. What a computer is looking for is confidence in your answers. Andres Larry suggests candidates script out what they want to say and practice so they feel more confident in the actual interview, which can help you get rid of that tentative phrasing. He recommended also weaving in some key phrases used in the job description. Another method used is video interviewing, where an employer can pre-record questions and then send them to job applicants who record their responses. The computer then transcribes and analyzes the answers of the candidates to help filter out applicants prior to being seen by a recruiter. To get rid of that initial discomfort, he suggested thinking of a story from a past job and practice retelling it. If this class has been of benefit to you, please subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below, and be sure to tune in to our next session of Escaping the Revolving Door of Prison, session number 7, entitled Skill Development for Suitable Employment, part number 2, when we'll be covering the 10-step interview preparation plan and how to prepare an effective resume that gets you results. This is John LeMaster saying, I'll be looking for you in our next session.